You know that sound? The one that fills millions of bedrooms every single night? It can sound like a rumble, a saw, sometimes even a freight train in the dark. Yep, we're talking about snoring. But what if that familiar, and let's be honest, annoying sound is actually more than just, well, noise?
For most of us, right, it just seems like a frustrating part of life. It's something you might joke about or complain about over your morning coffee. But is that really all it is? What if that sound is actually a message, a signal your body is sending that something much more serious is going on while you're asleep? That's exactly what we're going to get into. So, to kick things off, we really need to understand what snoring is, because it's not just some random sound, it's a physical event, and it has a very specific cause. To put it simply, snoring is the sound of vibration. It happens when the air you're trying to breathe in has to struggle to get past relaxed tissues in your throat. And when it does, it makes those tissues vibrate. So it's literally a sign that your airway is partially blocked. And that partial blockage, that's where things start to get a little concerning. This isn't just about the noise level. It's about what that blockage could mean for your health. In fact, a huge study reveals just how serious this connection can be. So get this, researchers looked at data from over 12,000 people, and what they found was a really powerful link between loud snoring and major heart and blood vessel problems. Now, what's so fascinating is that even after they accounted for other things, like age, weight, and smoking, that link was still incredibly strong. Okay, so compared to people who don't snore, the loud snorers had a 40% higher chance of having high blood pressure. And as you know, that's a huge risk factor for heart disease and stroke. It doesn't stop there. The odds of having a heart attack were 34% higher. And here's the real shocker, a 67% greater chance of having a stroke. I mean, these numbers are just staggering, right? It really forces us to ask the big question. What is happening inside our bodies when we sleep that makes a simple snore so potentially dangerous? Well, the answer, surprisingly, isn't really in our throats. It's in our brains. To understand why our airway gets blocked, we have to look at how our brain activity completely changes the moment we fall asleep. You see, while you're awake right now, your brain is pumping out this whole cocktail of chemicals, things like norepinephrine and serotonin. Scientists call this the wakefulness stimulus, and its job is basically to keep you alert and, this is the crucial part, to maintain muscle tone all over your body. That includes the muscles in your throat that work hard to keep your airway wide open so you can breathe easily. This is the perfect way to picture it. Think of that wakefulness stimulus as a guard on duty for your airway. When you're awake, the guard is totally active, those chemicals are flowing, and your throat muscles are kept nice and firm, holding that airway open. But the second you fall asleep, that chemical flow gets turned way down or even switched off completely. The guard basically goes off duty. And without that constant on signal, your throat muscles relax and become floppy, making them really vulnerable to collapsing. So let's follow that chain reaction. That loss of the brain's on signal has a direct physical effect right inside your throat. Okay, so there's this one super important muscle called the genioglossus. Its whole job is to pull your tongue forward and keep it out of your airway. But when that wakefulness stimulus fades away during sleep, this muscle loses its command from the brain. It just goes limp. And then what happens? You guessed it. Gravity takes over. The tongue falls backward, which narrows or sometimes even blocks the very passage you need for air. Now, when that partial blockage from snoring turns into a complete blockage, that's a condition called obstructive sleep apnea, or OSA. This is where you literally stop breathing. These pauses can go on for 10 seconds, sometimes longer, and they can happen hundreds of times in a single night, over and over, starving your body and your brain of oxygen. This constant cycle puts a massive strain on your heart and your whole cardiovascular system, which helps explain those scary risks we saw earlier. And the research suggests that about half of all people who snore loudly actually have OSA. Okay, so now that we get the science and the risks, what can we actually do about it? Well, the good news is that a lot of the risk factors are things we can manage, and there are definitely steps you can take to get a better and quieter night's sleep. So let's quickly run through the common culprits. Being overweight can add extra tissue in the throat area, which narrows the airway. Alcohol and muscle relaxers, well, they do exactly what their name says. They relax muscles, including the ones in your throat, making them way more likely to collapse. Smoking causes inflammation, and even something as simple as a stuffy nose can force you to breathe harder, creating a suction effect that can pull that airway closed.
Beyond tackling those specific risks, just practicing good sleep hygiene can make a huge difference. The American Academy of Sleep Medicine has a few key tips. First, consistency is your best friend. Going to bed and waking up around the same time helps regulate your body's internal clock. Creating a sleep sanctuary, dark, quiet, and cool, also helps a lot. And, of course, avoiding things like caffeine or a huge meal right before bed lets your body wind down naturally. But here's the most important thing to remember. These tips are great, but they're not a replacement for professional medical advice. If you or maybe your partner suspect that your snoring is loud, disruptive, and especially if there are pauses in breathing, the official recommendation is crystal clear. Go talk to a doctor. So as it turns out, snoring isn't just a nuisance. It's a really complex event tied directly to our brain chemistry and our anatomy, and it can be a serious warning about our health. The sounds you make when you're asleep might just be the most important thing your body is trying to say. The only question left is, are you listening?